After spending the summer of 2022 in Grand Teton National Park, I wanted to visit as many of the other national parks in that part of the country while I was in the area. That would mean going to Glacier National Park in northern Montana, to Theodore Roosevelt National Park in North Dakota, to Badlands and Wind Cave National Parks in South Dakota. And along the way, I also wanted to hit Devil's Tower, Custer State Park, Little Bighorn, Wounded Knee, and the Pine Ridge Indian Reservation. Welcome to Walts Wanderings. I have now been to over half our national parks. In today's episode of Walts Wanderings, we're going to go to Badlands National Park in South Dakota. I didn't know how the Park Service could have planned it better, but right at the entrance to Badlands National Park, there was a group of pronghorn, a prairie dog town, and a lone bison. The Badlands certainly seem otherworldly, even more so than the Badlands of North Dakota. It's a long drive through the park to the visitor center, and I hope to see bighorn sheep in each of the parks I visited, but I hadn't had any luck. Each day I would check with the visitor center to see where the latest sighting of bighorn sheep had been, planning to go there in hopes of finally seeing one of those beautiful animals. A ranger had suggested 2 turnouts as places to see bighorn sheep. Bighorns were the last big mammal I wanted to see to finish my checklist. I stopped at both and scanned for a long time with my binoculars and long lens, and I saw nothing. Then, as I was leaving the second turnout, I saw a bunch of cars pulled over. There were a bunch of bighorns. Some were right by the road and unbothered by the humans nearby. One was wearing a radio collar. Unfortunately, they were female, so had the smaller horns, but at least I could say I saw them. But I promised myself to try again the next day to see some rams with the big horns. One day, as I stood in line to speak to the ranger at the visitor center, I overheard the woman in front of me asking whether there were dangerous animals in the park. She asked if there were bears, and the ranger replied, "Yes, we have a few bears, but they stay away from people, so I wouldn't worry about them." The woman said, "So no need to carry bear spray?" "No, not really." The woman asked, "How about wolves?" The ranger said, "Oh, we have a few wolves, but they're even more loose than the bears. No one ever sees them." The woman said, "What about mountain lions?" The ranger said, "Oh, I wouldn't worry about those." The woman said, "Oh, so you don't have any mountain lions?" And the ranger said, "Oh, no, we have lots of those, but they attack silently from behind, so there's really no point in worrying about them." That was reassuring. One day, I went to where the ranger suggested I might see some bighorns. I didn't, but I did see the peanut mobile. It was kind of unexpected in this out-of-the-way place. I was also approached by an indigenous man who wanted to sell me a dream catcher for $20. I told him I was sorry, but I didn't have any cash. This is true. I rarely carry cash on long trips and depend solely on credit cards. More on that man when I encountered him again the next day at Wounded Knee. The ranger had told me she heard there were some bighorns along the Castle Trail, so after my first stop, I drove to hike Castle Trail. I had not gone far when the couple coming the other way told me there were 2 bighorns about a half-mile down, not in the first ravine, but in the second. I started hiking quickly to make sure I got there before the bighorns moved on. There were no bighorns in the second ravine, but it had been less than a quarter mile, so I decided to keep hiking along the ridge and keep looking down in each ravine in the hopes that I would see something. This meant walking through coarse grass and briars which invaded my socks and shoes. I was about to give up and start back when I encountered another couple, and when I turned to talk to them, I saw 2 rams in the ravine. They were somewhat hidden in the shadows. I worked my way around both sides of the ravine, shooting all the pictures I could, although I knew with the shadows the pictures wouldn't be great. One of the sheep had a scar on his forehead that almost looked like a third eye. Knowing these guys fight by butting heads, I wonder if he got that scar in a battle with another ram. As I was taking photos, a couple came up and I pointed out the sheep, and they also started taking pictures. While I was talking to these people, the sheep started moving towards us, and we watched enthralled as they came up the ravine close to us. We all knew not to get too close to wildlife, but figured if we stayed where we were, we would let the sheep choose how close they wanted to come to humans, which turned out to be pretty close. They gave us ample opportunity for photos, almost seeming to want to pose for us before climbing out of the canyon and roaming off across the prairies. Over the years, I have been to so many parks that have promised bighorns, but I had never seen any. I had been wanting to see bighorns for so long, and to have such a close-up special time with them, I got a bit teary-eyed at the amazing beauty and majesty of these powerful creatures. It was well worth waiting for. I have since seen bighorns in Anza Borrego State Park in California. Borrego is actually the Spanish word for these animals. And in Glacier National Park in Montana, and Valley of Fire State Park in Nevada. But those first bighorns, the ones that I had waited so long to see, will always be special to me and make the Badlands a special place in my memories. Have you ever waited for something special like that? Maybe a chance to go in a hot air balloon or to the top of the Eiffel Tower? Tell me in the comments. Next on Walt's Wanderings, I hope you will join me when I tell you the story of one of the most magical days of my life, when I thought I was part of achieving world peace at the opening ceremony of the Barcelona Olympics in 1992. Tune in, won't you?